All right, hello and welcome to another episode of our fabulous podcast. I'm here with my co-host, as always.
Hello.
And today's theme is things you should know but don't. So I'm going to start us off today with classic misconceptions about Disney stories and where they actually came from. So most of Disney's classics are like adapted versions of stories written by the Brothers Grimm. And I knew that some tweaks and changes existed that separated the Disney tales from their darker counterparts. However, I didn't realize how grotesque and kind of disgusting some of it was, so, strap in. First point, Greg, how do you remember the story of Cinderella?
Um, well, I remember a girl losing a shoe, and she's like, "Oh man, where the heck's my shoe at?" And so basically, this prince is like, "Hey, I dance with you, and I have this shoe," and he goes around town saying, "Hey, does your shoe fit?" And well, the Cinderella sisters tried to have the shoe fit on their feet, but it did not work. And then so it fit for Cinderella, and they lived happily ever after. That's basically all I remember.
Kind of sounds like a Payless advertisement, but that might just be me. So, you're right. But after the whole "I casually left my shoe after rushing to leave a ball" part, um, and the prince drops everything to find Cinderella, the major and kind of gory difference is the reaction of the stepsisters. They don't just try to squeeze their ogre-like feet into the dainty slipper. Instead, in the brothers version, they cut off parts of their feet, like their toes. Um,
Oh.
and more than that, they have like they end up in a really disgusting position where after everything is sorted out and the resolution where Cinderella's all like, "Ooh, I found my prince." Yeah, the stepsisters get their eyes poked out by doves and they live the rest of their lives as sad, miserable beggars. So, I almost feel bad. What do you think, Greg?
Uh-huh. Well, I was not expecting that. I was, a Disney movie. You'd think, oh, it's probably a okay story. You're not gonna have, the occasional like cut in someone's skin, but not when that. No, just no. I did not expect that at all.
Feels bad, man. All
Yeah.
right, so the next one is the story of Snow White, which is also super gross.
Oh boy.
So the conflict does like intensify in both versions when the evil queen orders a huntsman to go get Snow White's heart, like one does. She
Huh.
obviously, she being Snow White, obviously survives this in the Disney edition. However, in the original, she's not so lucky. And in addition to that, in the Grimm story, the queen is actually Snow White's real mom who wants to eat her heart as well as her liver and lungs. That is not a cute Mother's Day.
This is just getting worse and worse by the minute. So instead of like, having this evil witch try to come against this beautiful young lady, it's actually her mother, and then she's eating her heart out. Like, who comes up with these?
I don't know, man. Sounds like something out of Stephen King, but how would I know?
Reminds me of the German folk tales that I learned about when learning about German culture. There was a story about Krampus, who's you know how in Christmas we have the good guy Santa Claus. Well,
Yeah,
in,
it's like German Santa, right?
yeah, so basically instead of
No, wait, hold on. No, so basically, I think this is how I think it's gonna
oh,
go. I
okay.
think that instead of presents and candy canes, he's gonna give out like hot dogs and pretzels. You know?
Ooh, close. In
Yeah.
actuality, he directs kids to hell.
Wait a
Basically,
second.
instead of receiving coal if they were naughty that specific year, Krampus beats the kid with a stick and then drags them to hell. So
Oh.
that's a little bit more of a motivation not to be bad, than just you're gonna get cold that year. So yeah, it just reminded me of that. Pretty interesting.
At least coal keeps you warm.
I mean, I guess so.
I guess.
I
All
guess
right. So
some
on that
utility.
On that happy note, the last one I'll be diving into today is Sleeping Beauty. So, what do you remember about this one, Greg?
She was sleeping and she was beautiful. Um, no,
Brilliant.
but I actually Beauty. I remember she uh after biting an apple, she went into a coma, and then she was only able to come out of her coma through a true love's kiss, and then she, I don't know, met the dwarves or something like that, and uh, that's all I
All
remember.
right, you're mixing the two.
Oh
That
wait, no,
that's more
that's.
Snow White.
Anyways,
No, you're all good though. They both go into coma, so they're practically the same person.
basic, yeah.
Um, so in the Grimm brothers story, which is actually an adaptation of a prior written story, but it's still really gross. So the original, before even the Grimm brothers wrote it, is titled Sun, Moon, and Talia, and it depicts a girl named Talia
Mhm.
that eventually is morphed into what we know as Sleeping Beauty. She's foretold to prick her finger on flaxseed instead of a spindle, which I think is really funny. On a seed. Anyways, she fell unconscious. A foreign king raped her, gave birth to twins while still
Is
unconscious.
that
You know,
physically
like,
possible?
I don't know. So the kids, to take this full circle, are named Sun and Moon, and Talia ends up marrying that foreign king. Yikes!
Um, wow. Okay.
Right?
That kind of reminds me of what's it called? That one syndrome where it's like uh
Stockholm.
Stockholm
Yeah,
syndrome. Yeah, that reminds me of that. But in
I
a
highly doubt there's a specific name for was in coma impregnated with twins syndrome.
yeah, I don't think so either.
Hope not.
That's just really gruesome. Anyways, actually not gruesome, just weird. Um anyways, on to a more light topic. So, have you ever wondered what on earth your third cousin twice removed even means? Well, so did I. It's that kind of thing that you hear when you're younger, but you never take the time to research it.
Wow, Greg, really out here exposing me.
Yeah, cough, Jesse. Um, basically, here's how it works. One's first, second, and third family member, for example, first, second, third cousins, explains how many generations that cousin or family member is to one's closest ancestor. Additionally, when one says he's my second cousin twice removed, the twice removed signifies how many generations away they are from your family tree. To put this into perspective, if your cousins have kids, then they would be once removed, and if they had kids, they would be twice removed, and if they had kids, their children would be thrice removed. It's extremely formulaic. While kinship terminology might seem overwhelming at first, it's not as complicated as other kinship terminology systems outside of America. For example, the Chinese utilize individual terms for each specific relationship in your family tree. Try memorizing that. Speaking of
No, thank you.
yeah. But speaking of memory though, Jesse, do you ever remember hearing about a game called 400 Years? Markiplier played it once. I know you watched him before.
Man, I watch him and Jacksepticeye purely for their voices and their hair and the aesthetic. I've never heard of that game before.
Well, 400 Years, in my opinion, is an extremely underrated indie game back in 2015. So it makes sense why you would never actually have heard of it before because it's extremely old, or you probably forgot. But it didn't have amazing graphics nor a long storyline, but the simplicity of the concept behind the game, along with the unique visuals, gave it some really neat vibes. Speaking of unique visuals, though, Jesse, how important are the graphics and visuals in games to you?
Well, to be fair, Greg, I'm not a huge gamer,
Mhm.
right? So a lot of what I put emphasis on in games is like the lore and the visuals, like Dead Cells. I only play because I think it looks pretty and I think it's like really aesthetic, and the way that the whole path maps out is really pretty. But actually, I have a question for you. What makes a game an indie game? I don't get that.
Um, well, an indie game is okay. So you know, like PlayStation games like Call of Duty and like made by a huge organization.
Hmm.
Yeah, indie games are games often developed by like individuals or like small teams that like start like a game that isn't usually like too, I don't want to say immersive, but like huge. Like it's like smaller. It's those smaller kind of like flash games. You'd find
Yes,
on
so
friv.com.
it would be nothing like League, which is like a huge franchise, like League of Legends has like an anime and a show and like all that stuff.
Yeah. It,
Got it.
yeah. Yeah, that's basically what an indie game is. Um, but speaking of this one, the premise behind it is that it manipulates the passage of time. You play as a stone statue in hopes of saving a village. It results in a sacrificial ending where you clog a volcano that was bound to erupt and end humanity.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, forgot to say that. However, many obstacles are in the way. For example, cliffs, lakes, and the fact that the volcano isn't supposed to erupt until 400 years passes by, hence the name. The fascinating mechanic behind this game, however, is that the statue can hibernate in a specific part on the map in order to pass time very quickly. So this results in like lakes freezing over so you can pass by and the trees growing so you can climb the cliffs, etc., etc. It's basically you pass time extremely quickly in order to change the environment around you so that you can go and complete your goal. It's a really interesting game that fascinated me when I was first played through it, and I definitely am checking it out for yourselves. But yeah.
Awesome.
I guess with that, there's one more thing we have for today, and that's with
Fantastic.
Jesse.
All right, true fans already know. I'm on to my favorite part. So, we've strayed a little bit from like charity of the episode, and instead we have a shout out section. It's still exciting if you ask me, so don't lose your hype. All right. So, today's theme is all about things you don't know that you probably should. And a lot of that in modern context revolves around like the news and stuff. And you feel like you're always missing something with current events because they're, current. Um, so a program I found that's super helpful with this is called the New Paper. It's designed for people that don't really watch or read the news heavily. It's like News Light edition, basically for skimming, just gives you the main gist of everything. So I personally think it's awesome. I get it emailed to me. I think it comes every day.
Hmm.
So I'm going to put a link in the description. It's free to sign up. You just add your email. And I think it's really cool. It gives you like little subtopics of like, here's world politics, here's US politics, here's some quirky things you might not know. Like it's pretty epic. So Greg, how do you keep up with the news?
Well, I'm not some kind of traditionalist. I don't use the newspaper all the time, but I uh I usually just search up like the topic I'm trying to research and then look at a few articles on the internet. That's basically it. And I also turn on the television like Fox News or CNN. Sometimes while my dad's watching it as well. So I guess I usually get it from the internet and news stations on TV. So yeah.
Oh man, I thought you were gonna be one of those crossword New York Times junkies.
No, never. Um,
All right.
but I think with that, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you for tuning in to our fifth episode of the Shenanigans Podcast, and we hope that we see you next time. Bye bye.